Okay, so in this video, we're going to go over some things that you can do while quarantined to kind of understand and practice your landscape photography skills while you're at home. So our scene here is basically we have this little island and we've got a little miniature guy there. And then when we turn on the faucet, water is going to run out of the measuring cup and into the sink. Now, for lighting this, what we've decided to go with is a 55 watt LED construction light. You can pick this up for like $50 on Amazon. So we've set up the camera and it's on a tripod, and you always want to use a tripod whenever you have a very long exposure or you just want to make sure that the camera is stable. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the little miniature figure, and then we're going to activate the faucet. The water is going to start running, and then we're going to give it about a 15th of a second exposure. We want ISO 100, and I'm going to put it on a 10-second delay just so that I can start the process, then turn on the faucet, and then it will take the photo. Now that we've taken the photo, let's take a look at the result. As we can see, the water here doesn't look smooth at all. In fact, it looks very rough. It's very unappealing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a longer exposure and see how that affects the water. In order to significantly lengthen the exposure, what I did is I screwed on a 4-stop ND filter. You can pick up ND filters from pretty much any place. I like using a 3, 4, maybe a 10-stop if I really need it. But what that allows us to do is now we're taking a 5-second or 4-second exposure, which means it's going to smooth that water out. So now let's go ahead and do the same process. Start the water flowing and have the picture be taken. And now let's view the results. As we can see, by doing the 4 or 5 second exposure, the water is no longer bubbly, it's more smooth, and it kind of lends a calmness to the scene that wasn't there before. For our last experiment with this waterfall scene, what we're going to do is we're going to use this pen light to shine a spotlight on our waterfall. In this case, we can see that everything's a lot more illuminated. Now, it might not seem like it from just looking at this photo, but when we show you the original photo and then the new photo, you can see a big difference. And this is the kind of spotlight that we had on the previous video for, I believe it was the first waterfall that we saw. So that was our simulated waterfall. We saw how a small change in the light can have a big impact on the image that you get. We also saw that when you slow down the shutter speed, you smooth the water out. And you don't always need to have a filter to slow down your shutter speed. Sometimes you can do it just because there isn't enough ambient light around. But it's always good, in my opinion, to have things like a filter in your kit because sometimes you want to take a long exposure, but you can't get a long exposure because there's too much light. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a mountain exercise that'll simulate how you can try and position yourself, try and get an image which layers the mountains. So for this, we first need to make our mountains. So what I did for this is I just took a piece of cardboard, in this case it's an old tripod box, drew some mountains on it, and then cut those mountains out and prop them up using soup cans of all things. The key to this exercise is to get a series of layers with the mountains. So what I've done here for this first shot is I've set up my tripod very low as I could get it with this hallway, and then I have the light facing the front of our simulated mountains. So this is front lighting. So when taking this exposure, I really wasn't concerned with how long or how short it was. mainly because I had it on a tripod, and also because changing the length of the exposure really isn't going to change the scene here. So it's not going to benefit us if it's 15 seconds, and it's not going to be worse for us if it's 1/20th of a second. We just want to get an exposure. So as we can see in this image, we really don't have that much sense of depth other than the shadows that each subsequent layer is putting on the layer after it. What we really want is something like side lighting. So here we've set up a side lighting situation, and even from the camera video angle, what we can see is that we have more of a layered effect, right? That front ridge is not as well lit, and then you get subsequently different lighting for each one of our simulated mountains. Now, taking a look at the photo, we can see that effect is more dramatic, and so what we have now is we have this layered effect that really adds depth to the photo. And of course, these are simulated mountains out of cardboard in a hallway in my apartment, so it's not quite the same as if you were out there, but it's a good simulation of it. And it will teach you what you need to be looking for when you're trying to take mountain photos. All right, there you go. That's 2 ways that you can practice landscape photography while you're self-isolating, which you should be doing. So, yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And I'll see you later.